Go put your shirts on. We're going out today. We're gonna stay warm. No clouds are in the way. This ain't no winter. This ain't no autumn. We wanted blue skies. And now we got 'em down, 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 down. Down, 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 down. I'll go down, I'll go down with the sun.
Hey all, welcome. Glad you all can be here with us. We're gonna get started and I imagine other folks will trickle in. So yeah, thank you for joining us this afternoon. Just a brief overview of the agenda before we move into introductions. We're gonna be together for the next 60 minutes. And inside that 60 minutes, we're going to hopefully be able to land for you what somatics is as it relates to the law, and as that connects to our well-being, particularly centered in Mental Health Awareness Month. And we're going to do that by way of a couple simulations, a couple practices, and engagement. So this is experiential learning. We do invite your participation in any and all ways that feel comfortable. Let's get started with some introductions. My name is Lindsay, and I use she, they pronouns. I am generally located in Durango, Colorado, and I actually am in Oakland, on Ohlone land here in the Bay Area, where I formerly lived. And yeah, I've been tending to my garden, and that's a new practice for me. And so getting my hands dirty has been a really special way to connect back into the earth and myself. And I'll pass it off to my partner, Nick.
Thanks, Lindsay. And hi, everybody. So good to be in community with all of you. My name is Nick. I use she or they pronouns, and I am also in Oakland, California on Ohlone land, where it is a little bit earlier than it is for some of you on the East Coast. So glad to be like finishing the workday with each of you. And I've also been taking care of myself in the garden, but mostly weeding because it's that season in California right now. And Lindsay and I we're organizational development consultants, and we're both somatic coaches here representing an organization called Murmur, which I'll drop a link to in the chat if y'all are curious to learn more about our work. And Murmur is a organizational development collaborative that helps teams focus their fire and embody their vision. And we do that through strategic and adaptive planning. We do that through team retreats and through equity facilitation on our multiracial teams. And all of that is grounded in the power of somatics. So we're here today working in partnership with New York State Bar Association for this event in May, which many of you know is Mental Health Awareness Month. And we want to start by just stating that, traditionally, many of us associate mental health with our mind and our thought patterns, right? It's literally called mental health, which locates us from the neck up and thinking about our overall health and well-being. But that what we actually know is that the body really has profound impacts on our well-being and overall health, and that we can't actually separate the shapes that our bodies take under pressure, under crisis, under chaos, under just the ordinary stuff of navigating work stress. We can't separate those shapes from our thought patterns and therefore our emotional landscapes, right? So that when we address this idea of not feeling well, we immediately sometimes go to phrases like looking on the bright side or appreciate what you having more, phrases that help to kind of change our thought patterns, even things like toughen up or power through it, right? And that in somatics, we really hold that the body sends signals to our thoughts. So we can't separate those two things, and that hopefully all of you are here because you're in agreement about that, right? Or you have some curiosity about the connection between the body and growing our awareness of what's happening here, right? And that when we grow our awareness, we're able to better support ourselves in feeling better, right? And taking action from a more centered place. So that's our kind of grounding foundation for the work today and why we're here inside of Mental Health Awareness Month. And we do want to just encourage you. We wish we could take time for everyone to introduce themselves as thoroughly as Lindsay and I just did, but want to encourage you to keep doing that in the chat. So saying hello, saying where you're tuning in from, and then also how you're taking care of yourself this month. And then we'll take a moment also to just kind of tune into each other more collectively at the top of our session here through a poll. So totally okay if y'all want to stay off camera for most of this session, but if there's a moment that you might come on camera, now could be it. Just for the sake of actually being able to see each other as we tune into this collective poll. And we're going to invite, just a series of questions to see what of the following statements feel true for you. And if it's true for you, you can wave your actual hand, right? Like a thing that we don't do very often when we're tuning in and got other stuff going on. Or if you want to stay off camera, you can just throw up an emoji. Yeah, so we can feel and sense you that way. So, y'all, we would love to know, by way of emojis or your actual hands going up, how many of the people here entered law because you wanted to be a change agent or serve justice? If that's true for you, just hands up or a show of emoji. Okay, lovely. Hands down. And how many of you care about the client issues that you represent? Hands up or a show of emojis. Yeah, chat is also a great space. Right on. Hello. How many of you in this space enjoy problem solving? Okay, all right. Less hands, but still some hands up. Lovely. Okay. How many of the folks in this space, and no shame here, would consider yourself a bit of a perfectionist? Okay, and then just make sure to see each other as we're doing this too, right? So it's not just I'm seeing myself as my hand goes up and I'm kind of shocked here, but also tune into each other and the community that we're in for the next 50 minutes. How many of you strive to be right or to win? Or that's like a part of your motivation in the day. Yeah, right on, okay. How about how many of the people in this space have not yet had a glass of water today, like a full glass of water? Okay, great, 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 great. No shame, no shade. How many of you forgot to eat lunch today? Okay, less hands. All right, all right. How about forgot to eat lunch anytime last week? Anytime last week, I just kind of skipped lunch. It didn't make the priority list for the day. Okay, okay. How many of the people in this space enjoy closing their inbox at night? Yeah, so like shutting down your email inbox at night, your hands up. Okay, and then how many of you just had a little pang of jealousy or confusion at the idea of closing your inbox at night? Yeah, that was like disorienting or weird that could be a thing. Okay, cool, cool, cool. How many of you are actively multitasking right now? Yeah, no shame, no shame. Yeah, like there's another window open, other priorities are making their way here. How many of you are just thinking about something else right now? If you don't have another tab open, but your mind is elsewhere. Yeah, okay. And then last question. How many of you would identify with feeling stressed or overwhelmed while at work? Okay, we got some 2 hands up. Yeah, y'all. All right. So Beautiful. Thanks for tuning in to each other and, engaging in our collective poll, which really was meant to just help us ground in the fact that you can see by how many hands went up and emojis went up that the experience of feeling stressed and overwhelmed is not about you as an individual, but it's really about the water that we're swimming in the legal industry. And that part of what Somatics really has to offer us is the capacity, the idea of really being able to feel ourselves in that swimming so that our automated responses to stress and pressure are not running the show. And that's part of what we're going to be engaging in together today.
Yeah, thanks, Nick. And before we jump into practice, just in the nature of context setting, which we really plant inside Somatics as essential to forming greater awareness of how we are shaped, how we're showing up, is this idea that we are all here now collectively, right, as a legal community, and to just take a moment in appreciation as we saw each other's hands up, right, or proudly maybe not, that we are in this together, right? And so that maybe for the next 50 minutes or so, instead of relating to each other as relative strangers, we can begin to just identify ourselves as comrades, right? We're here, we've chosen to be here as a priority of care, and that we're doing that both for ourselves, and then if we look around and we really kind of channel each other's presence here, we're doing that collectively, and what impact or influence that has on you today.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so Lindsay already gave you a bit of a roadmap for our experience together today, but we're mostly going to be in practice with each other with some opportunities to reflect both individually and collectively. And the reason our emphasis is on practice inside of the 1 hour we have together is because Somatics is really, it's a pragmatic methodology that prioritizes practice. So it holds that 300 repetitions of anything help to make that a body memory. So help to form a habit in our bodies. But 3,000 repetitions of that same habit help us to embody it under pressure. Which is to say that, Lindsay and I are just offering you a few reps in that ocean of 3,000 today to help to embody new ways of being inside of a really challenging industry. So that's why we're paying a lot of attention to practice today. And that's why we're going to jump right in right now. So as we said, you do you in terms of on-screen or off-screen participation, but we're going to take a moment to shift into the life of the body now. And the first thing I'll invite you to do is just find your way to a more comfortable posture to be able to do that. Yeah, so you can adjust yourself in your seat. You can find your spine a little bit longer. Yeah, you can wiggle. You can orient your body slightly away from the screen if staring at a computer doesn't actually help you drop in and down. Whatever adjustments you need to make them now. And then start by just slowing down. Yeah, so if it helps to take one nice deep breath in and then a sigh out. It's end of the workday for some of you, so just arrive here. And let your attention drop down below the neck. And we'll take just a brief moment here for a body scan, really holding that when we grow our awareness of the sensations of what's happening inside of our body, we're able to make different choices, right? That those sensations don't just run the show, but we pay attention to them and can act from center. So from the neck down here, just notice what's alive in the body. Paying particular attention to temperature, textures, where you're noticing constriction or expansion, buzzing, bubbling, weight. Tune into what's going on first in your chest, shoulders, solar plexus, and gut, so your torso. And as we're observing the life of the body here, we're not judging it, right? We're not clocking a feeling and saying, oh God, that's here because, oh, I'm upset about that, right? We're just observing as neutrally as possible. And then drop your attention down even further, hips, legs, and feet. What, if any, sensations are alive there?
Good. And now that we are perhaps a little bit more embodied, we're going to just take a moment inside what we're calling a contraction practice to focus our embodied self-awareness on various places where we might tend to contract regularly or perhaps without even knowing it, right? So what it might feel like to intentionally begin to contract our bodies. So let's go ahead and with our hands make a fist and just notice what happens when we tighten our hands into a fist and begin to just contract here. Good. And then similarly, let's go ahead and begin to narrow our eyes if they're open, right? And really start to squeeze our eyes closed and start to contract here along our eye band and maybe furrowing our brow along with that. And inviting the jaw in as well and start to contract the jaw, maybe grinding the teeth a little bit. And then bringing the chest in, right? So squeezing in and contracting, maybe elbows are now hugging rib cage. Good. And then adding our sort of sits bones, our butt muscles, our perineums, just tightening up. And then lastly, our feet. And just for a moment, can we feel the fullness of this contraction? Squeeze, 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 and then release. And just take a moment to feel. Notice. We're going to do that 2 more times. Okay, so just inviting in the sensation of contraction in some pretty major bands along our body. So go ahead at your own pace, bringing in the fists, the eyes, the jaw, the chest, the butt, the feet. Squeeze, squeeze, squeeze. Contract, contract, contract. Tighten. Release. Good. Notice your breath. Notice any sensations. Great. And then one more time, tightening up, contracting, really trying to, I don't know, make ourselves small, tight, bracing, squeeze, 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 grind, and release. Yeah, good. And continue to feel, continue to stay here, right? And just the noticing of that acuteness of contraction, right? And what we can do when we go deeper into it, that allows us to feel more when we release intentionally. Yeah. And so from here, we're going to step into a practice that we playfully call the grab practice, right? So we are locating ourselves under some type of pressure, right? And because we are not here to punish, we really, we're trying to keep this at a 3, 2, 3, 4 spot here rather than a 10 spot. Yeah. But again, important in locating ourselves as legal professionals inside the legal justice system, right? How can we begin to observe the pressures and conditions of the industry, the everyday practices that we're in as lawyers, as advocates, as legal professionals that impact our body? Yeah. So I'm going to start to say some words of association with the industry, And we just want you to stay in the noticing, what arises for you on the level of sensation, on the level of feeling, okay? And see if you can identify within your body any visceral reactions. So go ahead and stay located in the body. What arises for you when we begin to talk about the billable hour? The billable hour. Urgent deadlines. Partner or client demands. What does it feel like to prepare for a trial or enter discovery? Right? I'm sure many of you are working on high stakes matters or juggling a heavy caseload. Yeah. A throwback, but the Socratic method, right? Zealous advocacy. What does it feel like? What's elicited in your system just with the obligation of being a zealous advocate? Yeah, attorney-client privilege. Right? So here we are inside some of the very real standard conditions of an adversarial and punitive justice system. And now that we've kind of drawn on these conditions, go ahead and take just another moment, right, to maybe settle into one sensation or experience that you just encountered inside these conditions, these circumstances, right? And maybe it's one that feels really familiar to you, right? So could be just returning to the contractions that we just did, or any bracing, pulsing, hollowing in the stomach, any buzzing in the chest, or maybe pressure on our shoulders, weight on our shoulders, right? So just locate that sensation within yourself under any one of these conditions that are associated with the legal profession. Good. And as we cultivate embodied self-awareness, we're going to go ahead and imagine there's a dial, like a volume dial. Yeah. And so with this volume dial, we have the power to turn it up and turn it down. So we're going to go ahead and turn the volume up on this experience, on these sensations, to 5, 10, 15% more, right? You're in choice here around how much you want to modulate this dial. But what happens inside the sensation when you turn it up? Good. Good. And when you're ready, when you feel like you've gotten a glimpse into what that experience is like for yourself, you go ahead and bring that dial back to neutral. And stay in the noticing.
And as you bring that dial back to neutral, we want to offer that it's one thing to have the felt experience of sensation, to actually notice what's going on in our bodies, but it's another thing to name that sensation out loud. And so we want to take a moment to do that now in community with each other. And just invite you all to drop one sensation in the chat that you observed while moving through that process of responding to the grabs that Lindsay shared out loud: billable hour, partner client demands, urgent deadline. One or two sensations that came online inside of you as you were reflecting on those grabs. And take a moment to just drop that in the chat right now for the sake of understanding what's in the soup of our profession, right? What's happening in the body of this field, right? Which includes all of our individual bodies. the racing and fearful, tense and overwhelming heat, urgency. Yeah, what else is here? And thanks to Nadine, Kathleen, and Anna. And these can be as simple and pedestrian as possible, right? Like tightness in my chest, you know, eyes heavy, anxiety. Yeah. So from Remla, I actually started getting a headache. And want to promise y'all that we're going to get some resource and resilience in here in just a moment too. So we're not going to leave y'all in a headache space.
No,
Oh, go ahead, Linz.
yeah, no, just also wanting to lend some context here too, right? That here we are just invoking our embodied self-awareness of some of the ways that we feel under pressure, right? And because from this place, we can start to have more agency. Choice follows awareness, right? So helpful to know, maybe even mostly subconsciously or unconsciously, how my brilliant body is reacting under pressure, right? Of everyday sort of grabs of being a legal professional in this industry. And so from here, we can start to better understand what's occurring for us in the life of the body and have more choice to take action aligned with other ways, other possibilities of relating to these pressures.
Mm. Thanks, Linz. Yeah, so let's take some action then, y'all. So from that place of constriction, of where anxiety was showing up in your body, maybe where heat, urgency, that tenseness, that sense of overwhelm, wherever that is in your body, as much as it is tolerable, tune back into that spot. And your answer may be, it's a general space, like I'm feeling it all over my body, right? But if you can locate one place inside where it feels like that originates for you, and then take a moment to open your palms. Yeah, so you can do this in your lap facing upwards, or you can do this just as Lindsay and I are modeling here, but just to open your palms and bring a sense of care into your palms. Deep care. And if you went up into your head to try and figure out, how do I do that? How do I bring care into my palms? Just say internally, care, as you're opening your palms. And to make this simple. Just feel that sense of care rushing to the center of your hands here. And then take a moment to place your palms on that site that you were just observing pressure from. So for me, it was my solar plexus, so I'm placing both of my palms there. And then notice what that's like. For you to extend care from yourself to yourself. And really pay attention here to what, if anything, is changing. And then play for a moment here with pressure. So try extending a little more pressure through your hands into that place. And then loosening in that pressure, moving your hands slightly away, experimenting with the right amount of touch from yourself and to yourself. And then settle into just the right degree. Breathing for a few moments there. And then again, noticing what's occurring for you. And just as we did before, turning our attention back to each other and the screen to drop one more observation of sensation in the chat here from a slightly more resourced place. What's one thing you're observing in your body now, having brought a little care into your hands and then to yourself? And a reminder that sensation could just be temperature, it could be weight, it could be tightness, yeah, looseness. Yeah, warm and calmed breathing. Lovely, Kathleen. A release of tension. And one or two more noticings here from what happened when we extended care into our hands and then to our body. So for me, I know that my attention actually dropped into my stomach. I couldn't really feel much below my solar plexus before I made contact to it. And now suddenly the rest of me is online. I have access to more. It's mine. Mm-hmm. Yeah, more warmth, more love. So again, inside of the sort of methodology of somatics, we really believe that awareness leads to more choice. So the more we pay attention to what's happening here, the more we can actually embody our choices from a more purposeful place. And that's where we're going to shift to now for the last half of our experience together, is really grounding in and around your purpose as lawyers, as legal professionals, and why you are in this field, for the sake of what. So from that slightly more resourced place, and again, you can even come back to that kind of originating site of pressure that now has a little bit more care from you. We want to just invite you to think about why this work of lawyering matters to you. And in a moment, we're going to jump into another practice together, but we thought that we could actually just drop that question out for conversation and for sharing out loud here to just stimulate some ideas in each other. It may be a question that you were hyper aware of when you were first entering into the field. Certainly, it could be a question that helped get you through law school, but it might be one that you haven't thought of in a little while. Some of you may think of this question every single day, and it's the thing that helps you get out of bed and to work. Yeah. But we're going to ask everyone to consider it for this, our next 25 minutes together. Why does this work of lawyering matter to you? And we'll ask in a moment for one or two people to come off mute and just share. And they can be half draft ideas. They certainly don't have to be packaged or tied up in a pretty bow here before we get into some practice around it. So by way of modeling, I've asked Lindsay if she would be so bold as to share her for the sake of what, to get us going here. And to model for us, Lindsay. Yeah. Why does this work of lawyering matter to you?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it is such an immense honor to be here in front of the New York State Bar Association members. I was a former corporate litigator on Wall Street in New York, and at the time, my purpose feels so distant to where it is now. But I can really attribute that to what a separation I felt within myself, such a disconnect to who I was then. And as I become more and more practiced in embodying what matters to me, I would say the purpose that I hold for advocating for lawyering now is really inside and around fighting for the dignity of others, leveraging my my privilege, leveraging the power that it is to be a lawyer, to be a stand for the dignity and humanity of others, and those especially who are not resourced enough to maybe advocate or fight for themselves.
Thanks, Lindsay.
Yeah.
Yeah, and thanks to Nadine and Wendy for your whys in the chat here. Being able to advocate for others, way of gifting service to help make my community a better place for my family and the people around us. And then just restating Lindsay's to fight for the dignity of others. Yeah. Maybe those are stimulating some ideas inside of you, some reminders of your own why. Feel free to drop those in the chat. And then I wonder if there is one or two of you who might be willing to share your whys to this space. Why does lawyering matter to you? Yeah, and I see Anna, please. We'd love to hear from you.
I think for me, it's not that often that there's a way to be really practical and like find tangible ways in which you can help someone in a really mucky, murky, challenging situation. And what drew me to law school and the work that I do now was being able to be tapped in that kind of tangible, practical kind of capacity. And it's something I continue to really love about the work, is that there are real like deadlines and content and materials that you can put together that are going to make a difference, even if it's not in the broader scheme of things, in terms of movement building and social change, which are also things I care a lot about. But I think what's distinct about the work of being a lawyer that I really like is that there's also that very tangible, measurable way in which you can contribute. That still feels really good for my brain, even if it's sometimes stressful.
So appreciate that, Anna. Yeah, I am not a lawyer myself, but I come from a long line of lawyers. I've got a lot of lawyers in my family, and that includes my sister. And one of the things she speaks to a lot is the practical nature of this profession, right? The deep skill in being able to be of service in a practical way, and the power in that, right? I really hear that in your share, Anna. So thank you. Yeah, and from Kathleen here, help is the essence. I like helping people. They feel good about being helped, and I feel good because I help them. Yeah, so simple and so profound, right? From Jeanette, it matters to me because there are so many people that do not have the resources to acquire legal services or help. This line of work is challenging, but rewarding. Thanks so much, Jeanette. Is there one more who'd like to share out loud? Just more about your why. Why does lawyering matter? Why do you keep doing it? And I love for like a nice long silence as the courage grows in this room. Is there anyone else? All right, y'all. Well, we will invite a lot more sharing at the very end of our session here inside of a practice. So this is just to kind of temper you into the waters to thinking about purpose. And now we're going to shift to a centering practice that hopefully will help you locate it from a more grounded and deeply embodied place.
Beautiful. Thank you, Nick. And thank you all for offering in your purpose here. And as Nick mentioned, we're going to move into a foundational somatic practice we call centering. And I'm going to model this practice seated, and Nick, I believe, is already standing. So you can really choose what feels most accessible for yourself, seated or standing or even laying down. And inside every somatic practice is its own forsake of what, is its own purpose. And so we practice centering to feel more present, open, and connected to ourselves and then to this world around us and the world we want to be a part of. Yeah. So again, the invitation is to maybe soften your gaze away from the screen or into the horizon. We do encourage eyes open as we move through life with our eyes open, but of course, if closing them helps you connect more deeply inward right now, please go ahead and close your eyes. As we begin to, once again, and we're already here, just orient to sensation, right? So I'm going to invite, if we bring our thumb to our navel, right, our thumb to our belly button with one of our hands, just locating 2 or 3 fingers below, that is what we refer to here as the center of our body's gravity, right? So breathing into our hands here, just begin to notice what it feels like to orient from this place of physical center, our body's center. Good. As we start to feel for sensation, temperature, streaming, pulsing, connection to the earth with our feet or our sits bones. Good job, y'all. You can go ahead and release that arm. And when we center inside 4 dimensions. And so we'll begin with this initial dimension of length. Yeah, so this vertical line running from the soles of our feet all the way up through the tops of our head. Right, and begin to notice maybe from the center of our body's gravity down, so essentially from our hips down, what does it feel like to root down, right, in this dimension, letting gravity work us? Yeah. How to settle even more into our feet, even more into our chair. Good. And then similarly, as we root down, notice how we also rise up from that centered place along our back, our spine, our neck, our heads up towards the sky. So really focusing on this dimension of length, and how do we feel for inside our dimension of length, what we refer to as our line of dignity. How do you locate your dignity here? And maybe you've never felt for your dignity in this way. So just getting curious, right? Inside my length, how I inhabit my length, how do I also connect to my dignity, my worth? Just take a moment and see if you can even elongate your spine just a vertebrae at a time more, just breathing a little bit more length into your spine. As we feel for our dignity. Beautiful. And then similarly moving our awareness to the second dimension of width, side to side, right? Maybe extending our arms out, getting a feel for the space that we're taking up in our room, right? And similarly, how we inhabit our bodies, imagining unfurling from the center of our body, breathing into our rib cage and filling out the outer edges of our physical being. And just notice how you do that. How do you fully inhabit the width of your body? Right? And notice too, whether you're seated or standing, just what is the position of your hips? How much space are you physically taking up? Beautiful. And inside this dimension, we refer to it as our dimension of connection. So as we're here, can we begin to feel for how we connect to the world around us? And as a legal community in this space together, how do we start to sense and feel for one another? Yeah. And just notice how you do that, how you begin to do that physically, energetically. And taking one more moment to connect to any one thing or person that feels particularly special, close to you. Just allow yourself to feel for that connection from your with. Good. And then we'll move into this third dimension of depth. Yeah, so front and back, starting with our back bodies. And maybe this is the first time you're locating your awareness to your back today. Maybe you spend a lot of time here. Perhaps there's some pain here that draws your attention. In any event, just begin to notice what happens as you bring your awareness to your back. Perhaps tucking your shoulder blades in your back pocket, feeling for the fabric of your clothing on your back. Good. Maybe even bringing weight to your heels and leaning back just a little bit more, right? And now go ahead and imagine one or two hands on your back, right? And start to feel for who's at your back or what's at your back in terms of support. So again, perhaps somebody you know, somebody who's close to you in this lifetime, a family member, a friend, a colleague, an ancestor. And just take a moment to notice how you sense for that at your back. All the evolution that is at our back, everything that has brought us here today. Good. And in this dimension of time, go ahead and move through the middle of our bodies, right? Just paying a moment of gratitude and appreciation for what is organizing as a system inside of us to bring us life as we move towards our front body, right? And as we locate our awareness to our front body, just begin to feel for the parts of our front body that might be wanting our attention, right? Every day sort of organization has us orienting from our front bodies, whether we're driving or looking at our phones or computers. And so see if you can notice what's alive here and what might want a little attention to soften, to relax. Good. As we begin to orient towards what's ahead. Yeah, so again, in this dimensionality of time, feeling for maybe what the rest of your day feels like into the week and this month of mental health awareness. Just notice how you do that, how you move from a place of past and future and locate once more ourselves in present as we bring that hand back to the center of our body's gravity. Yeah, so one hand a little bit below the navel, and maybe inviting the other hand to the chest or wherever else feels comfortable. And we're going to center in this fourth dimension of purpose. Yeah. So from here, can we really start to feel for what matters to you about being a lawyer? What matters to you about being a lawyer, and why is that important? Begin to feel for how you want to feel inside this important role as a legal professional. How do you want to feel inside your role as an advocate? Just feeling and noticing here. And then this final inquiry, what do you envision for your future as a lawyer, as a legal professional? What do you envision for your future in this role? And just be with what arises, taking notice of where our longings and our desires come from. And then while we're here, we're just going to invite in a somatic practice, a competency building practice we call declarations, which is really how we come to embody our commitments. Right? So for example, as we're emerging the purpose that we're serving here as lawyers, why we're here and what matters, can we begin to shape that into a commitment? So for example, we'd say out loud, and since we're all on mute, the invitation is to bring voice to the commitment that you are forming. I'm a commitment to, and fill in the blank. So for example, I'm a commitment to centering my dignity as I stand for the dignity of others. And it really helps to say this out loud and allow your voice to yourself on mute, allow your voice to give life to commitment you long to embody. I'm a commitment to.
So we're going to give y'all a minute or two here to center around your commitment statements and just try on a few different drafts for them. And one offer here, the reason this declaration is an actual embodiment practice and not just something that we sit down to write or think about, right? So it's different than a journal entry in that way, is because your entire body should light up when you say it out loud. So you should feel yourself want to organize around it when you've landed your actual commitment statement. So if you say something out loud like, I'm a commitment to serving justice in the world, and nothing really happens inside of you, nothing animates in the life of your body, that's not your commitment statement. Okay, it's not your declaration. So try on here from this place of deep center that Lindsay just took us to, a few different drafts for what your declaration could be. And the reason that we start with the phrase, I am a commitment to, is because it helps to remind us that this is an embodied statement of what we care about. It's not just something that we're like promising for in the future. Okay. And by the way, if that language doesn't serve you, try on something else. So a minute or two here in silence as you try speaking out loud, and we'll make sure that all of you are on mute so you can speak them without everybody hearing in the space just right now. I am a commitment to landing your declaration. Just a minute here. And then one last invitation from us here is just that when you feel you've landed your declaration in whatever draft form it's in now, we'd love to see you drop it in the chat here as Lindsay has just modeled. And again, this is for the sake of building our collective web of declarations. They don't have to be, your final statement from now until forever. Just trying this on in draft form. I am a commitment to what?
And I really think it's important to name too, declarations as an organizing principle, right? So that when we do land ourselves inside our commitments, that it informs what we then practice, right? In order to honor and live into our commitments, right? So I'm a commitment to centering my own dignity as I stand for the dignity of others, really informs the way I show up for myself, right? And continue to refer to myself with love and compassion and dignifying, the various ways I might move about my work and day. That then allows me to extend out towards others. So that's just another aspect of declarations. And I see them coming in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that when we center around our purpose each day, we take action from this more caring, aligned, and resourced place. So we can hear that inside of the commitment statements here in the chat from Nadine. I am a commitment to being a voice for others and myself, to helping myself and others find joy and peace, to finding ease for myself and others. Yeah, to 3 drafts, Nadine, right on. From Kathleen, as a lawyer, I'm a commitment to helping my clients reach their goals, and then I will reach mine. Beautiful. And Nadine, thanks for the correction. Just the last one, right? Again, when you feel your body animate around it, that's the declaration. That's the commitment statement for you. So again, y'all, just as, sort of foundation to why we gathered today inside of Mental Health Awareness Month, we hope that it feels apparent that by taking care of ourselves, by doing this work individually, we start to build cultures of care and thereby disrupt all of the conditions that we named earlier that creates crisis and pressure inside of our bodies, right? And that's how we actually embody the type of impact that we want to have. So these declarations of being a commitment to centering kindness inside of legal services, they're pretty disruptive in the culture at large. And Lindsay and I just wanted to say that at the end here to high five you for your disruptions and for the continued ways in which you take time to center and prioritize your wellness and the body in that process.
Mm-hmm.
And we have a couple of just offerings that we want to close by sharing with you all if you're interested in continuing to pursue this work of somatics inside of the legal industry and your work more broadly.
Yeah, so just as we conclude, just sharing how we can stay in touch, and in staying in touch, how we can stay in practice. So we're going to drop our website in the chat. This will also come to you all by way of email. But you can learn about the ways that we are supporting legal services organizations, law firms, and the various programs that we are partnering with. Similarly, we launched last month what we call a Somatic Council, a free bi-weekly offering specifically designed for legal professionals to practice together. We've had a couple sessions already that have been incredibly moving and stirring for our participants. And so we just invite you to drop in. We will keep showing up in accountability, to really creating communities of care and practice. And then, of course, our email, the quickest, most effective way to reach us with your feedback, your inquiries, again, for the sake of cultivating more care inside legal community and the ways that we can foster practice ongoing. Because as Nick mentioned, and it's really wild to say how radical it is that we become embodied, we disrupt the current systems and structures that keep us so disconnected and detached. And we look forward to being in continued practice with you all. Thank you for your time. Thank you for the work that you do.
And then we want to just turn it over to Jen, our partner at the New York State Bar Association, to close us out with any more words.
And thank you, Jen.
Thank you both. I don't have much closing words other than to thank you both for your time here. For those of you that don't know me or aren't aware of my position at the New York State Bar Association, I am the Attorney Wellbeing Program Manager, and the Attorney Wellbeing Program is dedicated to highlighting 8 pillars of wellness. For May, we're kind of taking a check-in to honor Mental Health Awareness Month, and I'm grateful that Lindsay and Nick were able to share this space with us so we could honor that sense of community that is so needed in the legal field with regard to mental health and well-being. So just wanted to give that little highlight of the well-being program. Next month, we're talking about environmental wellness. So each month we highlight a different topic. And I will be sharing out a recording of today's program to everyone that registered so that if people want to kind of repeat the practices in a more intimate space, that they can have that as an option, and also the services, resources, and offerings that are available from Lindsay and Nick. So I will be sending all of those out to you all. And thank you all for your time.
Thanks, Jen. And thanks everybody. And feel free to come off mute and just make a little noise as you sign off here. So it's not just our voices that we're hearing as we close.
Bye, y'all. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Thank
Appreciate
you.
it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
You. Take care.
Bye.
Have
Bye-bye.
a great day, everyone.